Okay, hello everyone. I think we are live right now. Um, uh, I'm so happy. Happy second International Moon Day. This is our second year celebrating with everyone. Last year we had a plan. Uh, we discussed our plan regarding the analog missions and arts. This year we will discuss our experience with Neda Ratabi and Abdulaziz Nair, our analog astronauts who participated in the analog mission last year in Poland. So, first of all, we will discuss a little bit about our belief and motivation, a small introduction, why arts are important to be considered in the space field. This will start with a historical perspective, very small historical perspective. And then I will discuss a little bit about the mission concepts and objective. Last year, I showed you the arts during the exhibition, which I will discuss now in more detail. This year, we will discuss in more details with Neda and Abdulaziz about the arts during the mission and the details of the mission and what happened. I would like to start with this inspiring picture by one of the Apollo missions. This is the Earthrise, and it was taken in the early 70s. You can see Earth, you can see the clouds actually. As you are standing from the lunar surface, you can see this bright object called Earth, and it's covering larger area in the sky compared to what you see in Earth as you are seeing the moon, and it's more reflective. So in the 70s, it was possible to take this picture from the Apollo program, from the Apollo mission, with the technologies of the 70s, and in the background of the Cold War. So one of the main motivations for such a mission was the competition between the Soviet Union and the United States. What we can achieve is much more with international cooperation. This is an artist visualization of the Moon Village. And of course, if there are practical justifications more than just competition between the Soviet Union and the United States, and there is real international cooperation, of course, we can achieve much more than that. Involving everyone is a key issue in the Moon Village Association, and we have a particular project called Participation of Emerging Space Countries. The project, Emerging Space Countries, is all about creating a roadmap, communicating it with potential stakeholders like customers, investors, until an actual involvement of this country in a Moon Village or Moon activity can happen. We will have a call by the end of this year, by the end of this month, by the end of July, for new local teams from around the world to participate and draft a roadmap about how to involve their country in Moon activities. I will talk about this program in more details by the end of this talk. Analog missions is an excellent platform to test hardware, software, to test procedures, and also to test and examine the psychology of astronauts in isolation. There are many analog habitats in the world. Those in the pictures are just examples. The Mars Desert Research Station. We have also the high seas in Hawaii to the left. All of them are contributing to our knowledge to understand more about expanding humanity to outer space. And this is what we did last year in August with the Analog Astronaut Training Center. But this time, instead of testing hardware, software, or medical issues, psychological issues, we wanted to have art involved. So it's a mission with a primary objective of art. Why art? Art has been intertwined with science since the very early days of the modern understanding of science, if you like to say. In the picture here, you see Galileo. Galileo is trying to convince this cardinal to look at the moon because, as you can see in the paper that Galileo is holding, he was trying to point out that the moon consists of valleys and mountains, and Galileo was able to calculate the heights and the depths of those mountains using artistic techniques regarding the shadow and the shadow extension over a period and the angle of light. So this is a revolution because for the first time, celestial objects are subjects of study. So Galileo was able to show and to present a revolutionized concept because he was an artist. And this was shaking the entire understanding of the universe at that time. Not only Galileo, if you look at all the pioneers, many of them actually, they used to have artistic senses. This is another example of the first ever science fiction novel by Kepler. It's called The Dream. In this novel, he predicted some new concepts, new ideas. For example, he predicted that raising from Earth to the moon will result on the reduction of air pressure, and it will be cold. The novel is all about traveling from Earth to the moon using some sort of magics, and landing in the moon. And of course, he imagined some creatures in the moon. He explained the lunar sky, how the stars, how the sun, how the earth look like from the moon. It's really inspiring and it's interesting. The background story is interesting of this. It's an evidence that science has been always intertwined with art. So our mission concept and objectives, as you can see, is about performing an artwork during the mission. But of course, the idea was to compare this artwork during the mission with another artwork that was done already before the mission in an exhibition. So analog artists will be drawing, will be painting, because the artwork here is a painting. They will paint a painting based on a specific theme that we discussed before the mission, and then during the mission they will draw the same painting, but they have the right to modify based on their isolation experience. The idea is to compare between both paintings before and after. The Analog Astronaut Training Center in Poland at that time was trying to build a new habitat. So another objective was to scan the surrounding region for a future mission next year, which is we hope to do it this year after in September. And the idea also to publish a catalog where we can see the differences between both arts. So in Kuwait and before before the analog mission, we had many participants. As you can see, those are examples of the artwork before the mission. Another important idea of the exhibition was that we wanted to select analog astronauts for the mission. So thanks for CAB, the contemporary art platform in Kuwait. They hosted the exhibition, and we shared together a judging committee, and we selected analog astronauts to draw during the mission. Of course, it was possible for everyone to join the exhibition because the end of the day is an outreach program, and we wanted really to have uh, to increase the awareness about the relationship between arts and science. And it was, of course, a great experience during the exhibition. Our analog astronauts, the selected artwork, the selected paintings are shown as you can see here in the picture. We selected a few analog astronauts. Some of them were able to travel. So we have with us now Neda. Actually, her painting is to the right. Neda, can you please tell us a little bit about your painting?
Yes, hello everyone. So my painting is the one on the right-hand side. I was inspired first of all by the subject, which is connecting Poland, going to the moon, and Kuwait, as the habitat is in Poland. So my main idea for this painting is showing the Kuwaiti heritage, which, as you can see by the people sitting on the moon, they were sitting at a duania, which is a traditional way for men to gather around at different houses. So I imagined them sitting on the moon, looking at Earth as the first Apollo photo taken from the moon, showing the Earth. I also joined an abstract idea of how the space around looks, clouds, adding a color to it, adding a bright blue and a bright purple and pink in the background to give it more depth and more feel to show the viewer how people can go to the moon, bring their culture, their heritage, and show it to everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. Unfortunately, Nof is not with us today. Left is a fantastic, amazing artwork by Nof al-Gharbali. But of course, the best person to explain it is the person who has done it. But yeah.
Arun, can you go to the one before? Yes, please.
Yeah.
Hi, I just want to explain what Nof was doing. This is a metamorphosis, a change, okay? And I think what I understood from the painting and from the discussion with her, that this is what we are going now, okay? We are transforming, okay? And this is how she tried to understand it or to present it, the transformation from Earth-based human culture to space-based human culture. And I think it's very interesting. Thank you.
Those are the pictures, the paintings during the mission. Again, to the right is the painting by Neda, and to the left is the painting by Nof. Neda, can you tell us a little bit about the painting that you did?
Yes, so this painting is very different from the first one. I took an approach and looked at it from the other side, from Earth looking at the moon. I took inspiration by our mission and our extravehicular activity that we did, that we are going to talk about in a minute. And I used many different techniques as the materials on the habitat were very limited, especially water and the brushes. So I used acrylic painting, acrylic paint. I used it as a watercolor, as a texture, and as pigmented colors on the bottom. And I will be talking more in depth about the details of the painting in our next presentation.
Okay. Adil, do you have any comment regarding North's painting?
No, but I think the painting talks about itself. It's really interesting. It's really delicate, and how she painted it. She was like almost spending 7/24 working on it.
Yeah, one of the comments of North, she was extremely happy that for the first time she was able to focus full time, all day, night, during the mission to do an artwork. We will discuss more, of course. Here I will just stop sharing my presentation because Aziz will share his presentation, and Aziz and Nada will be talking about the mission in more details. Yeah, Aziz, the floor is yours.
Unmute. Yes. First, how are you doing? And thank you for allowing us to share this with you. The mission. 1 second, please. Yes. I have some guests outside, and they like to say hi also. Anyway, the mission was to go to an analog mission, okay, and to somehow try to put artists there that they can somehow transform this habitat from inside and outside to do artwork. Okay, the artwork, Nada will speak about it more details. Okay, but here is where the analog center is. It's in Poland. It's about an hour and a half from Krakow, south of Poland. So here we cannot see it, but we can zoom, okay, thanks to Google, and we can see it. And it is this house here, okay, and it's only half of the house, not full, the full house. So it's about 58 square meter, which is interesting. Now, let's go to our mission. Our mission was going to be mission number 49, okay, in their schedule system since they started this habitat. But for us, we called it Sohail, okay, one of the stars that shows Sirius that shows in our skies on September. Okay, and we have a cultural affiliation with it because it is the season of the rainy season. We start the rainy season. But here, what we did is that we tried to connect the cultural aspect. As you can see here, there is a boat. This boat is about 5,000 BC. Okay, it's almost 8,000 years old. And this is one of the oldest model boats that was found in Kuwait, northern Kuwait, from Al Ubaid civilized culture, and where there is like an archaeological site that is north of Kuwait. And we can see here that if you see the square, these squares are a calendar. This is the form of a calendar, and of course in the top we can see the sun and moon, and this is the stars. Okay, this is how we say Nejma or star in Akkadian. So we try to connect the present and the history and this logo. So this was our logo. Now this is our bunch. We started up with 3 artists and me being the commander, the artists from left to right, Nada, North, and this is Dr.
Agatha.
Dr. Agatha, thank you. Okay. Me and Talib. Okay. We reached there. This is the mission control room that we were received there. We sat there for about an hour and a half, did some exercises. She gave us some tests, okay, and then we had to go drive another 1 hour to go to the mall to buy our stuff, the water, everything, all of that, and then the food that we had to buy, and then we went to the habitat. So this was one of the tests. She gave us a test to see how our respond, okay? And from that test, she decided who's going to be the commander, all of that. This is according to their procedure, which was interesting. This is interesting for all of us, so we learned a lot. Then we went there, okay? And once we reached the habitat, our EVA started. So we had to steadily prepare. But there is one thing I have to say here. You see, Talib, he was our fourth participant that was supposed to be also the science director, but for one unfortunate thing happened, he had to leave directly, so he didn't join us. So at the end of the day, we were three, okay, Nof, Neda, and me. So we are the ones that started the whole thing and ended it. So now I let Nof start to explain for us, please.
Yes, so as Abdulaziz said, the roles was assigned as Abdulaziz as the commander, Nov as the medical officer, and me, Nada, as the data officer. So these roles were assigned by the AATC from the test that we made, so we can operate as a team where Nof would be conducting the scientific experiments assigned by the mission control. Me, a data officer, to put in the data to the cloud where they can see and preview the results daily. And Mr. Abdulaziz as the commander to operate and to basically look over us, make sure that we are doing well mentally in a well-mannered team.
But
So
please, there was also two other tasks that you and Nof did, okay? You were responsible for the safety officer, okay? Yes. This is one. And Nof, she was the health inspector. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. So as Commander Abdulaziz mentioned, the first day was the extravehicular activity where we had to gear up in 3 layers of clothing. First of all, our inside clothing, and then a plastic shield over it, and then the astronaut suit, as you can see in the picture. We also had to wear helmets, shoes, 3 layers of gloves, and 3 layers on our feet to protect us or simulate the protection that we have on the moon surface. We also had to wear a backpack where it would simulate an oxygen tank, and it was 8 kilograms. So I think in the next slide you would see us on the moon surface, which is it's a simulation, of course. So we walked for approximately 7 kilometers, Commander Abdulaziz.
Actually, 5. Okay, 5 exactly.
Yes, 5 kilometers from the older habitat to the new habitat that was being constructed at the time. There was some distractions on the way, where in the next slide you can see us walking through the moon surface, and also in the next one.
Yes,
yes, we kept exploring the place as we are walking uphill for 5 kilometers, with of course, as I mentioned, 8 kilograms on our backs, and of course the 3 layers of clothing on our hands, on our feet, and on our head. Commander Abdulaziz, unfortunately, one man down. He had some medical or health complications where he had to lay down, take a deep breath, keep drinking water. We had to slow down in the middle so we can make sure that the health and well-being of everyone is, of course, being checked. As we went up to the new habitat that was being constructed, there was a wall for us to conduct our first experiment there, which is how an astronaut would paint on the outer walls of the habitat in a simulated suit. So the color, the paint, acrylic paint, and the brushes were provided by the AATC for us to conduct this experiment. And an interesting thing, if you can go to the next slide, please, is me and Nof, we went two separate directions with this. I started the traditional way with the paint on a brush and trying to hold the brush with the 3 layers of gloves in our hand. It was very hard to grip the brush and to get a clean stroke out of the way I was holding the brush, and it was the wrong way. And as you can see, Nof was holding the actual tube of paint on her hands, and she was squeezing the paint directly on the paper that was provided. So we saw that this was the best way to have a direct contact between the paint and the canvas. So in the next slide, you can see me here struggling to hold the brush, while Nof was squeezing the paint and applying it directly to the canvas. And the next slide, you can see that I started copying her because this is how we learn, this is how we grow. We go to the traditional way and we see how it works. If it doesn't, we try another way. So thanks to Nof for that idea, of course. So we kept painting for about an hour, and you can go to the next slide, please. This is all about experimenting, seeing how the paint works on the canvas, seeing how we would use our hands, use to like lift up our hands, because again, the 3 layers of clothing was not helping us. So we had to improvise how we work. And of course, Dr. Agata was taking photos of us. And actually, the photos that Dr. Agata took inspired me to do the final painting. And hopefully, yes, and we got very excited, as you can see, because first of all, the air was so nice. The weather was, in the 3 layers of clothing that we were wearing, the weather was pretty nice compared to Kuwait.
And I think the gravity was also, since we're on the moon, so it was easy to climb.
Exactly. And the next slide. Yes, Dr. Agata was very inspired by the sun and tried to take photos of me and Nof with the sunset behind us in our spacesuits. And the next slide. As we were finishing up our painting, the sun was setting, so we had to finish up quickly because we had to also walk 5 kilometers back to the older habitat. And the next slide. It was a very exciting experience, honestly, for both of us. And as you can see here, my painting is on the right-hand side and Nof's painting on the left-hand side. So I'm going to talk about both paintings. My paintings, as I said, I started with a brush stroke. As you can see, the brush strokes were not was not showing. I struggled to do straight lines holding the brush with 3 layers of gloves on my hands. So I switched to Nof's method, which is paint directly on the canvas. So I I painted the moon, the sun, and earth. And I wrote the names in Arabic, moon as in al-qamar, shams as in the sun, earth as in al-ard. And in Nof's painting, she was inspired by the scenery in the flower, and the bluebird actually represents the astronauts who wear blue suits in the habitat. We wore black suits because we were not trained astronauts, we were artists and scientists. So, and she wrote under it As-Salam, which means peace, which is represented by the blue bird. Yes, as you can see here under Nof's painting, it says As-Salam, which means peace in Arabic.
Good. Now we are in the habitat. As you can see, okay, this is our daily activity that we do. Okay, and Nada is doing her exercise where she have to do the concentration test every day we start up. Okay, and the watch that they are wearing, okay, it tells us the time, and the time is different than what is on Earth. Okay, for example, we were one time connected to New York time, and the other time it was to New Zealand time, just to have the shift so that we don't know what is happening outside of our habitat. There is no window, nothing. Okay, it's well designed, okay, to be a good simulation of that. And here, as you can see, the work that there was doing, me, and as you can see here, this is our logo. So these are the missions that were before us. Okay, so we are happy to have our logo on this wall. This is the famous wall that they have. Okay, and this is our daily inspection. We have to always to check our concentration, gases concentration, CO2 concentration, temperature, any deviation of that, if there is any problem, humidity. And as you can see here, these are the nodes or the points where there is like a small detector, and there are a lot. Okay, for example, if unit number 17 didn't work, we have to recalibrate it or to have to report it to the mission control that this unit is not working or not giving us all the data. So this was, it was actually a full-fledged analog test, okay? Plus the aspect of doing art, and what Nada said, okay, it was two experiments actually. One of them, the EVA, extravehicular activity, to do art outside, as if we are outside of a space station and we are doing, and this is what Nada explained. And that was hard, but they were innovative in the way that they use their fingers directly instead of the brushes, which was very interesting. And then we went, and this is part of our daily work. Okay, we have to clean. Okay, and we have to do our homework always. Okay, every 2 hours. Okay, we have the exercise. Yes, this is Nof doing the exercise, and it's mandatory. No excuse out of it. This is me. Okay, and this is one of the experiments that I was the experimentee on. Okay, where they had to check my situation for about half an hour. And this is also part of life. We have to eat. And as you can see, this table here, it separates us, our time from 00 until the end of the day. So these are the tasks that we have to do. Every 2 hours, we have to take our medication, our bio measurements, okay, which Nof was doing, and Nada then has to report everything, all the temperature, everything with our report every 2 hours. So it's like one finishes, the other starts. And at the same time, we have to focus on our work. Okay, and here, when we start to work, okay, and you can see them. And now, Nada, back to you.
Yes, if I may add also about our last couple of slides about the lifestyle, we had to definitely be sustainable about it, to try our best to not produce as much waste in plastic, in food, and how we live daily. So throughout the 7 days, we reused our water bottles. We tried to reuse the plastic from our food into the art that we make. For example, I used the plastic wrapping around the paint actually to use it as a palette for it not to go to waste. And the picture of the garbage bins was all the waste that we produced throughout these 7 days, which, as reported by the AATC, was the least garbage produced by emission ever. Also, we used less water from the last missions as well. And in the lifestyle aspect, we chose a vegetarian diet, where we only ate vegetables, dairy, eggs, and that's it. Basically, we didn't consume any meat.
Yes.
Which
One thing I have to add, that Nada was responsible for our nutrition, and she made the plan for us from Kuwait for what we have to eat. But once we went there, because it's a totally different market, totally different thing, okay, it was really challenging, and she managed to do it. It's great, actually. We had good food, good nutrition. Thank you, Nada.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's part of living a healthy lifestyle to have healthy food and try to be in check of, are we eating well? Are we eating enough? And are we producing as much waste as we are on Earth? And I'm very happy that we really enjoyed the food, because this is part of the human experience, is to enjoy our company, food, and healthy lifestyle. So as we started working on our paintings, as I said, on my part, I was very inspired by the extravehicular activity that we did in the beginning, from the scenery, how I looked at the sky and how I looked at the sunset and the moon. And I actually painted one of the photos that Dr. Agata took of us, and it was me from behind walking up the hill. And yes, this is me starting, and as you can see, I only used the bottle in front of you. It was half filled with water, and this is the only amount of water I used to try and reduce the waste. I used the acrylic paint provided by the AATC, as I mentioned, as a watercolor, as a texture, and as a pigmented color. And in the next slide, this is my painting. So the person in the middle is a picture that Dr. Agata took of me from behind walking up the hill. So as I saw myself as I'm walking up the hill, I am walking up towards the moon. It is a step further in the moon research and on the habitat, on how we function, how we live, how we try our best to simulate our normal life up there. And as Commander Abdulaziz said, we had to do some exercises in the habitat, which I didn't do because of my claustrophobia. Unfortunately, I had an asthma attack there, which I didn't have in the past 5 years. So it took a toll on me mentally. So Commander Abdulaziz made sure that I take a rest once I wake up. I try to take a deep breath, let it out. So also the mental well-being of all of us was being monitored, which is a very important aspect to try to help each other. And this is all depicted in the painting in the colors. I tried my best to add bright colors to depict the bright future in front of us in the space research. And actually being in the habitat 24/7 really made us focus on painting, on trying to trying our best to produce a good art. And as you can see here in the picture, everyone is in their zone. We had our music playing and we kept focusing our best on the paintings. And as you can see, on my right side hand on the picture, I used, as I mentioned, the plastic from the acrylic paint as a palette. So this is not on the table. Yes, this is a plastic that I stuck on the table to try and mix the colors as best as I can. And one of the experiments from the AATC, the mission control, is for us to, if you can remind me of the name of the experiment.
Actually, you wrote it, impression. This is our impression. What is your impression in an A4? This is what's so everyone has to somehow come with an idea.
Yes, so we had to use colors and the print of our hand on a paper. So I used the color yellow because, first of all, it's my favorite color. And this was the last day actually of the mission. So I put all of my emotions into it. I just let it all out on this piece of paper. And the next slide will be of Snow. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here, but I'll try my best to cover for her and say from our conversations to talk about her experience.
Explain what is in her hands.
Yes, so this was in our extravehicular activity. As I said, we were exploring. And this is actually a frog that we found. She found it very cute for some reason. So she had it as her pet for a couple of minutes as we kept walking to the next habitat. And I explained her painting in the extravehicular activity. And yeah, so her painting, in my opinion, was amazing. She didn't sleep for 3 days trying to complete it, and actually on the last day she finished it 15 minutes before the mission was done. She used pen ink, and she used 2 pens, as if I remember correctly. She finished all the ink on this canvas, and she also used some of the acrylic paint as watercolor to add a different dimension to her painting. And as we were discussing in the habitat, she just paints what she feels. So every piece and every element has a feeling behind it, has an inspiration from the mission, the habitat, the extravehicular activity. And what she did was honestly incredible, and her efforts are very much appreciated, and they show in the painting as well.
I think one of the interesting things is that we can see there is a lot of recurrent themes of the transformation. Okay, I wish that she was here to explain it for us. Okay, but there is a lot of elements, the octopus, all of that, the whale, everything, all of that interacting. Okay, which is a lot to understand, but she was like working 7/24. Okay, so my job was to check that she's alive. This is the most important thing. Okay, now let's go. She is with her painting. Okay, and as you can see in the back, we have the moon, the full moon, and these are the bottled water that we had to drink. Okay, and it was interesting. It was interesting. Now, my job was to monitor everything, do reading. Okay, as you can see, the book Cosmo Hypothesis by Professor Frank White. It was interesting to read it while we were there. And I had to be an artist too. So what I was trying to do is somehow to connect, okay, our human understanding, okay, of the sky, because in our cosmology as humans, we have the sky above, we are on earth, okay? We don't worry about now the underworld, okay? We have to journey there one day. That's not the interesting thing now. But this is what humans saw, okay? The moon, the sun, the stars, all of that, and how they understood it. So I tried to use all the handwritings that was there. Okay, this will explain it more. Okay, all the culture, the rituals. Okay, the ritualistic of seeing the sky. Okay, the hands up because God is up. All the things are up. Okay, and there is always this double dichotomy between up and down, and these are in Old Arabic and Sumerian, Babylonian, all of that. So I tried in Hebrew. So I tried to mix all of these cultures, okay, and that are from the Middle East, and try to present it as how the humans saw the sky in the thousands of years. So this was my understanding, and the use of the color, because this is all of these are paintings on the walls. Okay, so wherever you go, if there is a mountain, if there is anything, you'll see these paintings, especially in Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, and that's what is all about. And if I can read what I wrote, all of them are saying the moon, the sun, all of that. And then we did the other thing. Okay, I started, and then Nada will finish, which was to paint some kind of joint work. All of three of us, we have to paint something together. Okay, plus our painting. So here was another challenge. Okay, and this was presented to us in the last 2 days. So always like the MCC, they have like nice challenges for us. Okay, this was my impression. Okay, this is my name in Old Arabic. Okay, and that's it. So then we finished. Okay, but before we finished, Nada will speak about this.
Yes, so the collective artwork that we had to do in the last minutes, we had to join our ideas together. Of course, my part is on the left-hand side, sorry, where the moon is. I was actually inspired by Commander Abdulaziz because he gave us a lecture about solar energy and how it affects the Earth and how it looks. And there was an image of the Earth in the middle and the solar energy going around it in different rays and different shapes. And it looks like as if it's flowing off the Earth. So this is how I painted it, but other than the Earth, I put the moon there. And the different colors of, as I mentioned, I always love using bright colors and shapes and textures in my paintings because there was always a bright future ahead of us and space exploration and space research. So that's why I wanted to depict that. On the right-hand side is Commander Abdulaziz's part, where he also was inspired by the Middle Eastern culture. He drew symbols as they were depicted by the ancient people, and how they saw the sun and how they drew it in their homes, in the mountains and in the caves. The calendar, as you can see in the square shape. He wrote the sun, the moon, the stars in Aramaic, if I remember correctly, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and the middle part, we had some issues with it because it was supposed to be no sparks, but she was still trying to finish her painting. As I mentioned, she finished it only 15 minutes before the mission had to end. So we were inspired by the experiment signed up to us by the AATC, which is our impressions. And it reminded us also from how ancient people put their mark on their houses or in their caves or where they lived is by imprinting their hands on the walls. And we connected that as a way to flow from older times to newer times, where we can actually see how space research and space exploration is progressing.
This
And
is
this
the
is a closer look to it. I think we did a really good job, no?
very well. I like it. It's really interesting. And the connection, okay, for example, what you draw, okay, the solar auroras, all of that, okay, and it's what is coming out of the sun, okay, but you did the change where you put the moon inside, and here we have our fair seeing. So this is where the humans in the middle means that we are here. This is the first part of our consciousness, awareness of ourselves. So we put our bar, and then, okay, also of how we are trying to understand the universe. Okay, the moon is up, the calendar, the division, all of that, our rotation, our understanding of it. So it's interesting. And this is the end product that we had.
Yes, it was obviously sad to leave our home for 7 days, but it was also nice to get the first fresh air in your face when you open that habitat door and you're back on Earth. You can hear the birds, you can smell the grass, and the sun was hitting. So it was a surreal feeling to come out and back on Earth.
Now we are back on Earth.
Yes. So Dr. Agatha presented us with our certificates, and she actually gave us a gift. If I can show it in 1 second, I found it very interesting. A great fact by her. She gave us the lanterns, which were first invented in Poland, and the great thing about it is we as Kuwaitis used these as a way to light up our homes and our streets. And I mean, it's a great souvenir. And I'm very thankful for this opportunity and for this experience.
This is
And
us.
yes, this is the path that we walked on in the extravehicular activity, but without the weight, without the many layers of clothing that we had to wear. So this was actually very nice to see again back on Earth.
Mhm. This is us on top of the tower, where there is like a radio telescope that is put there. Okay, there is 2 radio telescopes, one on top and one, as you can see, in the corner. And this is Dr. Agatha with the 3 of us. Okay, as you can see, I didn't shave for 7 days, so that's has to be remembered. Now you can continue, please.
Yes, so once we got out of the habitat, we had a meeting with the Colombian Air Force, as they are going to have the mission next to us, or after us. Sorry, the mission was mission 50, and our mission was mission 49. So we had a meeting with them over dinner to tell them what to expect, to advise them what to do and how to schedule their day correctly. So it was nice to teach them something new that they didn't know. And yeah, it was a great meeting, honestly, and a great end to our mission. And we actually did another thing with Dr. Agatha and the Colombian Air Forces, where we went to an amusement park. And we had to go on all of the roller coasters with a heart monitor to see the effects of the gravity force and the G-force on our bodies. Honestly, for me, I love roller coasters, and I rode, I think, 10 roller coasters, and each one I rode them 2 times to get the measurements correct. And we had to wear the monitor next to our heart at all times. So I tried to hold it while we were going on these crazy roller coasters. So it was a fun experiment, and we did get the final measurement that Dr. Agatha needed for her research.
Or what I can say, it was an extreme torture.
I had fun.
Yes. Okay. I had to do 4 times, and that's it. And they did it, the rest of them. And this is one of the dragons, okay, that we were in, okay. It looks nice. It's not peaceful, but it is not. Let's put it this way. Yes. Now, so this is the 3 of us, okay, and as we can see, we went on top of this tower to see this telescope. Okay, this is what's from a NATO, okay, telescope, and this was another telescope that Agatha's father, Dr. Agatha, he is the owner and director of this observatory. It's one of the 3 in the world that they can do some monitoring of certain communications in them. So it's interesting. We learned a lot, and this is where we ended up. And I would like to say just thank you to all of the people, Ghanem, Dr. Agatha, Nada, Nof, all of that, to give us this opportunity. It was really interesting, and CAP also for their help when we were in Kuwait. So it was a very interesting experience that we learned a lot.
Okay, thank you, Abdulaziz and Nada, for this. Of course, it's exciting, and I think it's a unique mission. As I mentioned, normally we have annual missions to test hardware, software, engineering, technology, medical issues, psychological issues, but I think this is the first ever analog mission with a primary objective of arts ever since the first analog mission started in 2003. And we are continuing that. Right? Can you please stop sharing so I can share my screen? Okay. So, yeah, as I said, it was the first mission. Last year, it was the first mission. And we are now working to do a new episode where we are going to show all the paintings with the comments by Nada, by Nof, by Abdulaziz. Most importantly, and this is you can consider it as an announcement, we have another mission that will happen in September, first week of September. And this is a call if you are interested to join. This is going to be an international mission. If you are interested to join, or you know someone interested to join as an artist in an analog mission, please contact us. We have empty spots for you. And we would like to repeat this and spread the awareness of the importance of arts and analog missions. So this analog mission was the roadmap for Kuwait. One of the projects actually that we are working in for Kuwait to participate in moon activities. It's a bottom-up approach. As I mentioned earlier, in the Moon Village Participation of Emerging Space Countries project, which is part of the Moon Village Association, we mentor local teams to come up with roadmaps. And our next call will happen by the end of this month, by the end of July 2023. We are welcoming new teams. As you can see here, the 27th of July, we are calling for participating teams. The deadline will be in the 17th of August, so please make sure to participate and to apply during this window. Then we will have the 28th and 29th of August, we will have a series of webinars where we will mentor and we will support and we will inform the teams what's the roadmap elements, how to draft it, and so on. By the 15th of October, we'll have the first draft of the roadmap, and then by the 15th of November, we will have the final roadmap. The roadmap is just the beginning of the BESC project, as you will need to communicate it to investors and stakeholders. The Annual Admissions and Arts is a great example for this. Our stakeholders in Kuwait, for example, was CAP, the contemporary art platform, and we are expanding. We are communicating with other organizations also in Kuwait. So, in conclusion, this is concluding our first presentation day. As we are expanding into outer space, as we are witnessing the beginning of civilization to be in the moon and abroad, we will have all aspects that we know, like art, culture, religion, policy, things that we can imagine and things that we can't imagine. We will take it with us to space. Unfortunately, arts and culture are underestimated, yet they are as equal as science and technology when it comes to expanding humanity to outer space and also on Earth, of course. Annual Admission is a perfect platform for space research and art. And Africa, the Middle East, is, of course, Europe, rich culture, and of course, we are interested to do this next year. Okay, so I think that's for our presentation. This is for our first presentation. We are happy to answer questions. If there is any other questions from the audience, whether in YouTube, in Facebook, or in Zoom, we are happy to answer any question. Our next presentation will be about the overview effect workshop. But before that, I would love to hear if any comments or question. Let me check YouTube. I don't see anything. Aziz, Neda, do you want to say something before I switch to the other presentation?
If I may add to the culture and arts aspects, it is very important to add a human touch to space research where science and the technology is incorporated. It is equally as important to add our culture and our human touch, because art, as you know, is a very human thing to do, and to add color, to add shapes, to add textures to that aspect is a great push, and it's a very good start to add to the space research.
There is a question here, okay, by anonymous attendee. Okay, what was the most difficult thing to adapt to during the simulation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, start with you, Nada.
Okay, so for me personally, it was my first time traveling abroad alone, without my family. So having the crew with Commander Abdulaziz and Medical Officer Nof, I had a connection with them, living with them for 7 days. We talked a lot about our life back home and how it's going to change after the habitat. So for me, the hardest thing is first of all, being away from my family, and adapting to how to live without the outer elements. I'm a very outdoor person. I love the air. I love going out into the sun, going outdoors in general. So as I mentioned, I had a bit of a claustrophobic episode in the beginning of the simulation, but I got over it, of course, with the help of my team and with the help of Commander. So this was the most difficult part, is I'm not exposed to the outer elements as I am on Earth.
Yes, okay. The most interesting thing that, or difficult actually, is to be in an isolated environment, okay? We didn't feel that isolated. Actually, it was somehow more interactive. This was the good thing, but still, when you are somehow outside, I know we had the same gravity as on Earth. Yes, we had our gravity without anything, okay, different, but still, you have that feeling that you are isolated. And this is what we are going to face as humans. Maybe Ghanem will explain that more to us in the overview effects lecture that he will give us now. But this is how we are going to be once we go to a new environment and new habitats, to live on Mars or on the moon or any place, ISS, okay, you are still going into a new environment that is somehow not connected. So that's the interesting thing, and you have to do with very limited things, okay? You don't have the cultural, not the cultural, the comfort, the cultural comforts that you have in everyday life, okay? You have to do whatever you have. Well, we had some problems, okay, so we have to invent, okay? The girls were very smart in doing things that I couldn't imagine. So it is interesting how we can adapt as humans. And the next question, I think, is to Neda.
Best meal you had there. But before that, I have been through 3 analog missions actually since 2019. In addition to the problem of isolation, I would say also the disturbance of your daily schedule. Normally, if you go to work, then sometimes you can have a break. I mean, if you stay in an analog mission for 2 weeks, you have a weekend. You have in the night. You can have your private time, but during an analog mission, you can't have this. It seems to me like you are 24/7 working, and this is exhausting, really exhausting. And that's why if you leave the simulator and you are back to Earth, you feel you want to party. You feel you want to celebrate. Best meal you had there, Neda, would you like to answer this question?
I mean, I was the one cooking. As we had a plan and a whole menu planned out for the whole 7 days, I mean, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we had to adapt to a different kind of menu with the same ingredients that we had as a vegetarian menu. We completely unsubconsciously didn't go through with that menu, but I'm gonna have to ask you, Abdulaziz, you're the one eating my food. How was it?
It was great. Okay, this is one thing. Okay, let's explain the work task regarding the food. The breakfast was Dove, and the main lunch and dinner was Neda. Okay, my responsibility were 3 responsibilities: to cut things, make them prepared, to eat, and to clean. So I enjoyed the middle part.
And what about the best meal that we had? What was it? Was it the spaghetti or the potatoes?
All of them. Seriously.
Thank you.
Seriously, I enjoyed it. Seriously. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. I don't see more questions. Thank you for the questions, actually. Yeah, and again, I would like to repeat that we will have another mission by September, first week of September. Please contact us as soon as possible if you're interested to join the mission as an artist. Okay, in this case, we are already 10 minutes after the hour, so I will immediately share my screen right now and start to talk about the overview effect workshop. Okay. Yeah, so the topic, communicating the urgency of human expansion into space. This is basically, this topic is the mission of a workshop, a 3 hours workshop that I started to present in Kuwait in February, starting from last February until now. I will speak about the motivation of this, why I think why it's important to have a workshop to communicate the urgency of expanding humanity to outer space. Of course, I always like to start from a historical perspective. Space philosophy is again underestimated topic. We spoke about art, and it's important in the beginning of this webinar. Space philosophy is extremely important, and we don't see it discussed as it should be during those days, at least, because there is a new paradigm that we are witnessing right now in the space industry. The overview effect workshop tries to overcome challenges of people living and working in space. Those are my personal perspective, the challenges. So the overview effect workshop targets both types of audience. There is the public audience, the general audience, the general public, who are curious to know about intellectual arguments why humanity should expand into outer space. The overview effect workshop is not a technical workshop where I discuss orbital mechanics or astronomy or space missions. It's more intellectuals. I present arguments, I discuss with the audience, and so on. And there is another version that I did not do yet, but I hope to do it in the future, which is going to be for decision makers. Then, of course, I'm part of organizations called Space Renaissance Initiative. I will be talking about some organizations. So space philosophy, actually, arguments why humanity should expand to space existed before the early space age. The space age started with the first satellite, Sputnik, by the Soviet Union in 1958. But since the mid-19th century, and actually before that, there was discussion about humanity in space. I spoke about Kepler, but there are more than that. Kepler's novel as a science fiction novel. But really, it's in the mid-19th century, we started to see arguments why it's important for Earth to expand into outer space. And when I say expanding humanity to outer space, I mean people living and working in habitats or settlements in space, whether in the moon, in an O'Neill cylinder, or in Mars. Those are completely independent settlements, but of course there are trade and relationship with Earth. And by that, I don't really mean plan B. Maybe in the media you mentioned that you can hear some people say if something wrong happened in Earth, a disaster in Earth, then we have the human species already in Mars or in the moon, then we can restore humanity and we can keep the species, going. But there is no plan B. As I will discuss now, astronautical humanism, Cosmo hypothesis, expanding humanity to outer space is all about Earth. Again, even before the space age, 1958, Walter Dremberger, who was leading the Nazi program of missile, ballistic missiles in 1942 and before that, he said that this 3rd day of October 1942 is the first in a new era of transportation that of space travel. So imagine someone who was born in the early 20th century, and you mention to them that you can have a breakfast in the Middle East in the morning, and you can travel to Europe, and the same day you will have lunch in Europe. That commercial flight was starting in the 40s. And it was evident and clear for everyone in the 40s that this will revolutionize humanity forever. Extremely quick transportation. No need for training if you want to go in a commercial air flight. That was the perspective of Walter Dremberger, that the next step, the next revolution, as now we are witnessing the revolution in air flights, the next one is going to be space travel, sending people to space and living in space. So people, even before the space age, even before the first human in space, there were ideas, there were arguments of humanity to live in outer space. Why the delay? I discussed this in my 3 hours workshop, and why we think now this delay is going to end and we are going to witness a revolution in the space industry. I also discussed these types of topics in my workshop. In addition to that, we are facing a lot of challenges. I like this picture so much. This is an artist visualization of the Moon Village. I showed it in my previous presentation. It's not clear, if you look at the picture, it's not clear, is this a camp or a settlement? A camp, just like the International Space Station. Astronauts go to the International Space Station, do some work. In this case, in the case of the ISS, they do experiments, they maintain the International Space Station. They can stay up to a year or so, and then they will be back to Earth. Their career is actually on Earth. However, if we are talking about settlement, we are talking about people who are independent and living in a completely outside, like a different continent. In the picture here, we can have a camp in the lunar surface where we have laborers specialized on lunar mining. They can extract mining and they can send it to Earth, for further industrial processes. On the other hand, we can also have a settlement where we have families living and working. People who say the moon is, I am a citizen of the moon. They live 24/7 for extended period of time. They work, they do entertainment, they go to school, kids go to school. So in the workshop, I also discussed the differences between a camp and settlement and how the concept of ownership, who owns the natural resources, is an extremely important question that we need to discuss. Of course, I'm not going to discuss those questions during this quick presentation because I'm just trying to give you an understanding what type of and what type of questions we answered in the overview effect workshop. What we believe in, actually, and this is, as you can see to the left, the Space Renaissance Initiative, which is an organization dedicated also for expanding humanity to outer space. To the right here, you have the logo of the Human Space Program, founded by Professor Frank White, the author of the Overview Effect and Cosma Hypothesis. Both organizations inspired me to do the Overview Effect workshop, of course, in addition to my courses with Kepler Space Institute, where I met Professor Frank White. So what we believe in is that expanding humanity to outer space is not a luxury, actually. It's a survival issue. And not because to have plan B for humanity, but to restore and maintain Earth for millennia to come. Again, I don't want to discuss why we think this is a survival issue, why we think expanding humanity to outer space is a destiny, not a choice. It's something we discuss in the workshop. Not in this quick lecture, but those are the topics that we discussed in the workshop. So, if we believe on expanding humanity to outer space, and this is the way for humanity to survive as a species, then there are challenges, and I think there are major 4 challenges that we can summarize here. First, the lack of awareness of the urgency of expansion, expanding humanity to outer space. This lack of awareness, I mean, you can really find a lot of educational materials online about system engineering, which is important. You can find also some materials about space medicine. You can find, universities. There is aerospace engineering major. But those philosophy topics are discussed. And I think this is a problem because there is a real threat on humanity if we keep in the closed world. And this is a terminology by the Space Renaissance Initiative philosophy called astronautical humanism. The open world is when we expand to outer space. People should understand that expanding to outer space is extremely important. And that's where the Overview Effect workshop trying to solve. Communicating the urgency of expanding humanity to outer space is about raising awareness about the issue. There is another challenge that is extremely important also, is involving everyone. I mentioned some of these of this challenge early in the first presentation. Only a small fraction of human population today are working on space activities, on space mission, and the vast majority of the world population are left behind. If we are going to expand into outer space, everyone should be involved. There are also legal issues. I will discuss a little bit about this, and as you can imagine, there are technical issues. So the lack of awareness, as I gave a quick introduction, expanding humanity to space is a survival issue. And those topics are rarely discussed. We need to create educational materials for people to raise this awareness and to put this argument for everyone. Looking at the issue in a deeper perspective, expanding humanity to outer space means tremendous economical development, means also social development. There is a link here between expanding human civilization to space and developing the society and culture. And I also discuss these things in my workshop. Involving everyone. As I mentioned earlier, what will happen if the entirety of the world population work together and expanded to outer space? New innovations, industrialization of the entirety of the world, limiting pollution, because there is this argument: if we are going to industrialize the world, we will have more carbon dioxide. But if we move our industry beyond the gravitational well of Earth, beyond the atmosphere, then we can restore Earth's atmosphere. Again, we discussed these topics in the workshop. Legal issues. Since the agricultural revolution thousands of years ago, there is a huge discussion about ownership. Who owns what? And this is going to happen also in space. Who will own natural resources? In 1976, we had the Bogota Declaration, where you can see in this map all countries in the equator, from Indonesia to Colombia to the west. Of course, passing through African countries, they wanted to declare sovereignty over geostationary orbit. Geostationary orbit has a very important application, which is for space communication. I mean, for communication satellites, and it's considered to be a natural resource. This particular band is a natural resource. I don't care really about the policy and the process that was happening at that time, what they did. But what I know, this sovereignty claiming was critical for the Outer Space Treaty, which was signed by 3 different countries at that time: the Soviet Union, the United States, and the United Kingdom. It was signed 11 years before the Bogota Declaration. Although the international community rejected the Bogota Declaration, and the Outer Space Treaty was there, which of course prohibits any country to claim sovereignty over any portion in space, whether in Moon, asteroids, in Mars. Regardless of the technical lawyer discussion, to me, this is the first ever conflict over natural resources. So we do have history, actually, we do have an example of a conflict over natural resources in the 70s. If we don't solve our legal problems now, then we will have a problem in the future. Technical issues. Of course, this is very classic. We need to mature the technology. We need to improve the technology for humanity to live in space. Whether we are talking about water production, oxygen production, waste management, heat management, energy production, and so on and so forth. But what I really mean in technical issues is that we are not going to be able to have settled, to really explore the solar system and beyond if we are doing it the way we are doing it right now. We can spend all the money on Earth to explore the universe and the solar system, yet we will not be able to explore as we will do if we expand humanity to outer space. If we have humans living and working in the moon, they will do the exploration of the moon. So it's a space exploration activity as well. So what's the solution to all these challenges? As I was trying to refer, is to communicate the urgency of expanding humanity to outer space for everyone. So the overview workshop is trying to do that. I have collected some literature from Astronautical Humanism Space Renaissance Initiative, and also, of course, some parts of the Cosma hypothesis and the overview effect is presented on this workshop. So as you can see here, this is the overview workshop for the public. First, I try to explain the new paradigm of the space industry. We are witnessing a revolution right now in the space industry. There are several things happening starting from the last 5-6 years. And it never happened before. And I discussed those points in my early first discussion of the workshop. And then I start to discuss about astronautical humanism. Basically, I start to talk about the open world future and the closed world future. What will happen if we stay on Earth for the coming 200-300 years? And what will happen if we escape or we send millions of people living and working off space? The closed world versus the open world scenario. The overview effect for me is an inspiration for space philosophy. So I defined the overview effect. And thanks for our partner, Earthscape VR, they provided us with an amazing video that is called The Music of the Spheres that can be played in virtual reality mode. I can tell you the virtual reality response, the feedback of the people was beyond expectation, was extremely inspiring for them. And using this virtual reality, you can witness the overview effect as close as possible as an astronaut in space, seeing Earth from space. It's more like a meditative, 25 minutes meditative experience where you will feel relaxed afterward. So then I speak a little bit about space philosophy, why it's important, and then I try to introduce Cosma hypothesis as a new philosophy after introducing system theory, some concepts from system theory. Cosma hypothesis is not human-centric. Astronautical humanism is human-centric. There are different perspectives for why humanity, different answers, let's say, for why humanity should expand into outer space. But they agree in many points. And I discuss, of course, those points. The workshop is interactive, so you can always discuss with me your perspective. Sometimes we do stargazing activities where we have also nice interaction with the audience during the night sky. The overview effect workshop for decision maker, this version I did not do yet. I hope I will do it in the future. I add 2 other elements for what I have just discussed. It's more than 3 hours, of course, because of the 2 hours of the other elements. As you can see in red, integration and cooperation, and contribute to the human space program blueprint. So those are extra work where we try to brainstorm decision makers on how to involve their country in efforts for expanding humanity to outer space. And this is part of communicating the urgency of expanding humanity to outer space. So, as I mentioned, the overview effect is the inspiration for space philosophy. And I hope in the future that we will have people who will be trained to provide those workshops in the future. So In conclusion, and also before I conclude, in the future, we are going to do this overview effect workshop online. So the international audience will be welcome to participate, and I will be really happy to hear the feedback from the international audience. So if you are interested, just join us in our social media or just send me an email. Of course, I will be happy to share with you our future online activities. So in conclusion, space philosophy should be communicated for the public and decision makers. I think it's extremely important to add in the curriculum for in aerospace engineering or even other topics. The overview effect workshop will support the human space program to disseminate the overview effect for everyone. In addition to that, of course, we are also supporting Space Renaissance Initiative. Performing hundreds of these workshops around the world can solve the main challenges facing humans to expand to space, especially if we are targeting decision makers. So thank you very much. I think that's my message for today, and I'm happy to hear if there is any questions actually from the audience. Okay, it seems I think that's it all. I think this is let me check YouTube if there is any other question. I think that's it. So there's no questions also in YouTube. Okay, so this is for today. I think we presented the annual Missions and Art Initiative. The annual Missions and Art Initiative, we mentioned that arts are underestimated and we need to have more focus on it. We have our initiative for that. We also mentioned about space philosophy, how important it is.
Ghanem, can you hear us? I think you are, yes, now you are okay.
Yeah, I think there was a lag or something. Do you like to mention the final word?
First, thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity. Okay, and thanks to Nada and Nof. I wish that Nof was with us, but I don't know, she couldn't make it. It was a good experience and we learned a lot. At least myself, I learned a lot from the team that I worked with, from you, from all of you guys. And thank you.
Thank you, Abdulaziz. Nada, do you want to mention anything before we end this webinar?
Yes, of course. I'd like to thank everyone who gave us the opportunity to do the first arts analog mission. And I definitely encourage everyone who has the opportunity or has the time to participate in this experience, because it is definitely a once in a lifetime experience to be part of an analog mission.
Okay, thank you, Abdulaziz and Nada. Thank you, Rafi, for the arrangement of this. Of course, for the second year, we are really honored to participate in the International Moon Day. And stay tuned for next year. We will participate and we will update our activities. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Goodbye.